Thank you very much, Reverend Dr. Matangi, as well as Monique. I think it is good that I go last because I now feel a bit more confident in the content, I guess, of my presentation. Next slide, please, Denza. Both former presenters have provided some of these key ethical principles, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but when putting this together, it was really about describing what this all means to us in government and how it is that we are going to ensure that being a responsible government, we need to make sure that we protect the welfare of our people and that we are the ones that, I guess, like you said, Dr. Colin, we have to be the gatekeepers of the research on behalf of our people. So those 8 key ethical principles I put up there, you've heard from both Monique and Matangi, and so they're all the same, similar to what they have presented already, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. Respect is number 1. It's not just respecting our Niue customs and culture, so I'm so glad, really happy with that presentation prior, because it reminded us that we're not just Niueans with Niuean culture and customs that we have to worry about, but it's the upbringing, which is based on Christian principles, is what also has to be respected. And I think that was quite clear, that came out quite well in that presentation. Informed consent you've got there, we want to make sure that people understand exactly what it is that you're asking of them. That is our responsibility as a government. And one of the very first things you do is that you have to translate anything into Wangao Niue. That is, again, related to number 1. Most times when you have consultations here, kutoma matua, it's our elderly who turn up more so than our young ones. So when you turn up to consultation and you have taken the time to translate your material into Wangao Niue, it goes a long way. So definitely informed consent, they need to understand the purpose, risks, and benefits. We've already heard that. Community engagement is important. While there are decisions that government can make, those decisions can also be made by the community. You need buy-in from the community. They need to know that this is not just going to benefit government, it's going to benefit their families and their communities and the nation as a whole, sorry. Ethical approval and government authorization. So we don't have a formal ethics committee, and there's a slide on that in a moment in terms of the process that we have, the current process. So we do rely, or we have been relying on overseas ethical approvals. So those of you who have submitted applications to do research here, we have asked that you get ethical approval from your universities. So we basically are relying on that ethical approval. And hearing from Monique is that that's the value that we put as a government on the ethical approvals provided by the universities that you are doing the research for. So instead of us going to, there's only so many anyway, but we need to have that expert opinion and that seal of I guess, approval or endorsement from an ethics committee of a university is what we take. Then we go to government authorization, which is through our cabinet. That is the highest decision-making body here for the executive government. So cabinet makes the decision, but cabinet makes it informed that we've done everything that we've supposed to do and bring all the information to them to make that decision. Data sovereignty and privacy, of course, that's also something that's come up more recently, Indigenous data sovereignty. And while we are still quite new in trying to find ways of protecting that data, the onus is on the researcher to do that. It is not government's job to kind of understand, well, how is this going to be stored, the Indigenous knowledge that you collect. It is the onus on the researcher to provide all of that. And if there are gaps, that's the role of government to then go back to you. But first and foremost, you have to bring that as part of your application. Environmental responsibility, and this presentation was done for all research. So while we have concentrated more so on health research through the Office of the Government, Secretary of Government. We receive all kinds of research. So it could be out in the ocean, it could be on land, research with biodiversity, anything like that. So environmental responsibility is also key for what we're looking for. Reciprocity and knowledge sharing. Of course, you've got to be able to share the results with the community, and they need to be able to understand, oh, okay, I've contributed to this, and this is where they're taking my information, they've collated it with others, and these are the final results. But also to acknowledge those local contributions and even consider co-authorship or collaboration where appropriate. And of course, we touched on transparency and accountability. So be clear with your objectives, the funding sources, and how the research will be used, but also be accountable, especially to the Niuean stakeholders. Next slide, please, Denzel. So the current processes for research applications, all inquiries are channeled through our office, which is the Office of the Secretary of Government. And I've put the email up there, but I'm also happy to share some other contact details afterwards. But that's our main email. We have a few staff who will check those emails, and these can just be inquiries. You don't have to be sending an application form straight away because, as you can see, I've already mentioned that we don't have a formal research ethics committee at the moment, but the national process is under review. And once we have that process endorsed by Cabinet, we will be putting that information up on our government website. So yeah, throw in an email or an inquiry to niue.setgov@gov.nu. Health research, these are the processes that we currently have. So you will see that research requests can come from different ways, different paths. Health research is one that I have been more involved with in my former role as the Director General for the Ministry of Social Services. And prior to COVID, I think it was just before COVID, we put a paper into Cabinet because there was increasing interest to do health research in Niue through the Health Department, like partner up with the Health Department to carry out research. And so we put a process to Cabinet, and that was approved around 2020, 21. And that's the process that we currently have. You have a form to fill, and the fee is $200 to apply. And then the team at the Department of Health will have a look at your application form, and they will then either endorse and accept it, or they might come back to you for further clarification of other things. They're the ones who will be responsible for health research at this current time, simply because they're the ones who would have to be partnering with you for any research in the health sector. We also have applications for environmental research. There are some guidelines that we already have for scientific research on land, as well as marine research in Niue waters. And those applications, the guidelines are available through our office, and the applications can also be submitted to the Office of the Secretary of Government. We've also had researchers come through Taonga Niue, and under Taonga Niue, you can submit applications if you are looking to do research using national archives, and of course, traditional knowledge, or even just interviews with our people, anything to do with Taonga that is governed by some legislation to some point, at some level, and you can contact the Department of Taonga Niue. So as you can see, there is no one specific pathway for all research, other than the fact that all inquiries must be channeled through our Office of the Secretary of Government, and then we'll be able to channel it through to the specific departments depending on the sector and the target of the research. Next slide, please. I just thought I'd put in a few of the legislation. So while some people might think, well, what is the policy? There are legislation in Niue that provides for some level of protection, I guess, and some governance mechanism. So Archives Act 1992, Niue Act 2012, and the Environment Act 2015, and other sector-specific legislation. So there are things in other areas that are already in legislation that we use as well. And the Village Councils Act, again, if you're talking about communities looking to do stakeholder consultations, the village councils is your local level government, and they are also governed by the Village Councils Act of 2016. Sorry, next slide. I thought I'd just share some of the, again, we had the key ethics, but I mean, if you're looking at just some core Niue terms we could use, definitely Niue or Niue is imperative. It's number one on the list. If you are to do research here, you have to provide that research. You have to gain informed consent, and you must provide for Niue. Whakalilifu, again, we've already seen you have to respect the way we do things, and I think earlier on we did, I did hear Reverend Matangi, we were just chatting before this, talking about the slow pace and the way that things happen here in Niue. Very slow, it's Niue time, and that's just the way things happen here with the population that we have. Whakauhuaki is you must remain focused. The people are central to any research, and you have to consider the impact on the families, the villages, and the country as a whole. And you also have to acknowledge the tufunga, or the expertise that our people bring to this research. So you must honor local or traditional knowledge and skills. And of course, our people, the hospitality, and they are very generous people. So whakamokoi, they are very open and sharing, but you have to value that openness, and you also have to protect that openness. Next slide, please. Just a reminder that, so that should be government takes overall responsibility for the welfare of Niue's people. If things go wrong, they're going to look to the government to provide answers. They look to the government to provide security and protection for them. So government doesn't take these decisions lightly, and that's why we take it to Cabinet. Cabinet makes the final decision on research. So again, just reminding people that, we're all, we're not just subjects, we are partners in this. And if you are looking to do research in Niue, then we need to look at that as a partnership. Our people will be sharing knowledge, and it is a gift, and it should be valued. There are external researchers that come, and I've heard a lot about using our Niuean people, local people, to drive the research, and I'm glad. But where there are external researchers, that you must approach communities with humility and transparency, and we always require a local counterpart. That goes without saying. There's something here that the communities here trust our own people. Even if you are just a Niuean from overseas, but having a local counterpart is so much more important. And that goes back to, we are responsible for the welfare of our people, of our local population. So yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing in terms of having a local counterpart, so they know where you live and come to you when things go wrong, but you would do a lot better when you have a local counterpart. So whether that's a department or an individual or an organization, you must have someone who was working here in Niue as part of the research as well. And of course, the cultural protocols followed and respected. We've touched on that. Next slide, please, Denzel. Just some tips on how to, carry out responsible research. At the very least, it should be aligned to the Niue National Strategic Plan. We are currently reviewing the current one. So it's 2016 to 2026, which is the one we currently have. But it's quite broad. And if you can show how your research is aligning and will contribute to the Niue National Strategic Plan, that is something that government looks favorably upon. Provide protections. Like I said, this is up to you as a researcher. What what are you going to do to provide that protection for our country? But it also could mean, as part of what we're doing now in the review process, is there room for maybe an agreement, memorandum of understanding or letter of agreement as to how you would deal with the data that you get from research in Niue, depending again on the researcher. Relationship with a local counterpart, we've talked about that. Again, back to showing respect. Working with village councils has been one of the most common ways of doing things in the village. And you can even work with the ecclesias. You've got Reverend Matangi there. The churches are very strong here. And you've got different groups that you could work through as well. Again, be transparent. One of the most important things is also looking at the cost. You've got both financial and non-financial costs. When you come and do a research in Niue, you have to consider the capability of the local population. You also have to consider the cost on them, on the staff that you are asking to help, on the departments that are asking that you're asking to help, and even the communities. Of course, share the results and benefits with the community. Always follow up. Some people have come, they've had maybe an initial community consultation. They've gathered data and they don't come back and share the results at the end. So those are some of the things that we'll be looking at as well. And last, of course, is to leave a positive legacy. You're not just here to extract data. You must be looking at building capacity of our communities or the local workforce. And if there's any opportunity for technology transfer or other things, that would also be favourable. And my last slide is next one. And I think this, and I thought this is actually quite good that the first two presenters from Monique and Dr. Matangi, ethical research in Niue is those three R's: respect, have that relationship, and round it up with the responsibility to our people. So, honouring culture and community, research becomes a shared journey of learning. Ko elahi mahaki for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.